Welcome to the Laverne Church of the Brethren's weekly audio message. Here at the Laverne Church of the Brethren, we create a Christian community called by Christ to be inclusive, caring, and peace-minded. We affirm that people of any race, ethnic identity, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability, age, economic status, faith tradition, or life situation are welcome in our congregation. We believe in compassionate service, stewardship of creation, respect for diversity, and nonviolent reconciliation for differences among all people, nations, and faith traditions. We claim no creed but the New Testament as exemplified by the life of Christ. We strive to follow the way of Jesus. And through these efforts, we seek to grow ever closer to the mind and heart of God. And now let us ground ourselves as we enter into today's message.
I'm reading from the Inclusive Bible, Romans chapter 12, verses 1 through 8, if I can find it again. There we go. Siblings, I beg you through the mercy of God to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Don't conform yourselves to this age, but be transformed by the renewal of your minds so that you can judge what God's will is, what is good and pleasing and perfect. In the light of grace I have from God, I urge each of you not to exaggerate your own importance. Each of you must judge yourself soberly by the standard of faith God has given you. Just as each of us has one body with many members, and those members don't have the same function, so all of us, in union with Christ, form one body, and as members of that one body, we belong to each other. We have gifts that differ according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophecy, use it in proportion to your faith. If your gift is ministry, use it for service. If you are a teacher, use your gift for teaching. If you are good at preaching, then preach boldly. If you give to charity, do so generously. If you are a leader, exercise your authority with care. If you help others, do so cheerfully.
Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed. These words are written by the Apostle Paul to the church in Rome. He's writing to a diverse people seeking to follow the ways of Jesus while living right in the middle of empire. And Paul tells them, despite what's going on around them, they ought to be different, not to conform, but to be transformed. This morning, we're wrapping up our summer series entitled A Light to Share, Rediscovering Our Radical Roots. And in case you missed some of the series, I'll give you a brief recap. Anabaptism, not to be confused with anti-baptism, comes from the word ana, which means again. Anabaptist simply means re-baptizers. During the Protestant Reformation, while Luther and Calvin were doing their thing, another radical movement emerged, the Anabaptist movement. The Anabaptists had their own distinctive features. They believed baptism should be a decision made by adults, not infants. They believed membership in the church should be voluntary, not forced. They believed in pacifism, a commitment to peace and nonviolence. And my personal favorite, they believed in separating the church from the state. These convictions put them at odds with both Catholic and Protestant powers, and yet they held fast to their convictions. Anabaptists lit a light that's been shining now for 500 years. This summer, we've taken time to reflect on these radical roots, this light that still shines today. We've been recognizing our Anabaptist ancestors, but I think it's important to name that Anabaptism and Brethren roots are not necessarily connected to each of us through our lineage. Some of us, me included, are what we might call neo-Anabaptists, or a new wave of Anabaptists. We're drawn to the values of that movement, the desire to follow Jesus, to serve God and not the powers that be, to seek peace and community, simplicity and justice. And today we're adding another value to that list, nonconformity. Now, when I think of nonconformity, my mind usually goes to appearance. I admire a person who can rock purple hair, or a creative, artistic, full sleeve tattoo. And yes, our spiritual ancestors express nonconformity in their physical appearance. The Amish, who are part of the Anabaptist tradition, still wear plain clothes and resist modern technology as a way of saying, we don't belong to the powers of this world. In our tradition, the Brethren once dressed very simply. Women wore bonnets and plain dresses. Men grew beards, but no mustache. I learned recently that this look of a beard without mustache was because a mustache was associated with the military. So their refusal to sport a stash was one way the Brethren said, we're a people of peace. Yet nonconformity wasn't originally about appearance. According to the Brethren Encyclopedia, which I promise it's a real thing, the Brethren Encyclopedia says this, in England in the 1500s, the idea behind nonconformity referred primarily to relations with the state church and only secondarily to relations with the general culture. Nonconformity referred primarily with relations to the state church. Anabaptists were nonconformists in this way. They refused to go along with state-sanctioned worship. They refused to bear arms, refused to take oaths to the state. They refused to give their loyalty the crown or the empire. Instead of conforming to the world, they sought to truly follow the ways of Christ. Last year, this value of nonconformity showed up around my family dinner table. One of my sons was sharing about saying the Pledge of Allegiance at school. And mortified, his older brother blurted out, "Wait, you actually do the pledge?" And he admitted that yes, he did participate in the pledge every day. His brother passionately explained that he did not have to participate if he didn't want to. He also shared that he hadn't said the pledge in years, that he just stood silently without putting his hand over his heart and without speaking the words. I was surprised. I didn't realize that he was not conforming. I prodded him about it, and he reminded me that when he was little, in first grade, we had talked about the 49ers quarterback, Colin Kaepernick, and how he would take a knee during the national anthem to bring attention to racial injustice. He said that I shared with him about Brethren nonconformity, and we talked about putting allegiance to God, to love, before anything else. Apparently that conversation was meaningful because he decided then that he would no longer participate in the pledge at school. So after reminding me of this, he continued to have this conversation with his younger brother about the pledge. And the next morning, his younger brother, my younger son, decided to tell his teacher, "I'm not saying the pledge today. I'm Brethren." Friends, this isn't new, though. The earliest Christians were nonconformists. They refused to worship Caesar and pledge allegiance to state. Their baptisms weren't just about water and faith. Their baptisms were a declaration of loyalty to Christ and not to Rome. It got them in trouble. Centuries later, Anabaptists did the same thing. They refused to baptize infants into the state church. They refused to bear arms for kings. They refused to swear oaths of allegiance. They chose the way of Jesus as their final authority, no matter the cost. And because of that, both the early Christians and the early Anabaptists became communities of light, shining a path toward another way of living, a way of peace, and a way that puts love first. I don't know about you, but I think we could use a bit of nonconformity these days, because empire is still with us. Today, empire is co-opting Christianity for greed and power and nationalism. Empire is pursuing violence in the name of God. Yet the light of those non-conforming early Christians and those first Anabaptists, it still shines. It's a light that refused to conform to the world's ways of domination and violence, and it's a light that's been passed down to each of us. So in these days where empire strives to force us to conform to its standards, may we refuse. May we shine differently. May we carry that non-conforming light, and may we share it with the world together. Amen. We're so glad that you listened to the message today. If you're looking for an open and affirming, peace-loving, and justice-seeking congregation, consider visiting us for in-person worship on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. We'd love to meet you.